And still with me in studio, we have Samuel Shai, chairman of the Israel-UAE Business Forum and president of Gulf Technology Systems. And joining us now is our senior international affairs correspondent, Owen Alterman. And Samuel, a really spectacular show, great marketing for Dubai. I mentioned before how I saw the impact of the expo in New York in 1964 on New York City. Some of the monuments of New York are still there from that expo. It transformed the whole section of the city into a beautiful park. What about the impact, lasting impact on Dubai, and could it, in a sense, also kickstart maybe some areas of business and industry there in the Emirates?
Yes, for sure. I mean, we must say that today Expo was a very big statement. It's a statement that's saying that Dubai and the Emirates in general are on the level of the major cities and major countries in the world. We can definitely see what they are leading to, and there will definitely be a lot of changes in the future on the way they are thinking. I must say I was very impressed from the way they did this spectacular. It was something amazing. I think the message was clear and simple and to the point. It's saying that the Emirates, it's a new country, it's a new generation, it's a new age. Today the Emirates are the same level of Hong Kong, Singapore, New York, and some other countries in the world, and they can definitely supply and deliver the new age of business, commerce, and economy.
Right, certainly Dubai open for business. That's got to be one of the messages there. After all, these expos started as trade expositions. Owen, earlier you said a lot of Israelis may not be aware of what's going on, but I think a lot are going to be aware in the coming weeks and months. Are going to want to renew that tourism to Dubai. And of course, Israel itself has a chance to play certainly a big role for it on this new stage in the Middle East.
Right. I mean, as for Israeli tourists, Kalev, you're right. I don't think there's much public awareness here at this point about the expo, but absolutely agree with you. I think that's going to change. I think people are going to start, the word is going to start to get out, again, by Israeli visitors there, maybe Israeli influencers there, and even our broadcast, of course, as well, really bringing this to the Israeli viewer.
Right.
And again, it's a 6-month-long event. So people are, over the course of time, going to be visiting. The news is going to be getting out. People are going to be going, bringing their stories back. And I do think that interest will pick up here in a really big way. Of course, a huge opportunity for Israel, right? This event brings together these two huge parts of the Israeli brand, of how Israel wants to see itself in the 21st century, right? The integration with the Middle East and the Abraham Accords, the worldly cosmopolitan Israel part of the region, and of course, Israel at the cutting edge of technology, the startup nation. They're both going to be on display in that Israeli pavilion. Very exciting opportunity for Israel. I want to come back to the issue of the UAE just for 1 second, wearing my international affairs hat. I wonder if there is a parallel here between this expo and what it means for the UAE and the 2008 Olympics and what they meant for China. In both cases, two countries, rising powers, if you will, putting their all into these huge events and these opening ceremonies to make a real impression. Now, of course, a fraught metaphor, right? Because in retrospect, the 2008 Olympics, very controversial. China's rise, very controversial. I don't think the UAE rise will be controversial in that way at all. But in a limited sense, I think that there's a parallel. Two countries putting their all into two events, really trying to break out into the world stage. And for China, it really worked in that sense. And one would expect it to work for the UAE.
Right, very much. It's sort of saying we're, like I said, open for business. We're open for visiting. Of course, Dubai already a massive tourism center. But again, also a lot of Americans, perhaps, for example, maybe less, it's not as on the tourist map for, say, North Americans as it is for Europeans. I think perhaps it was a message here that you had, along with a popular British singer, a Chinese musician, an Italian musician. You also had an American musician, Andra Day, performing here. And in that sense, Dubai perhaps also, in a sense, is also announcing itself, not just for business, but for tourism, and not just for the roads that Samuel that is already established, but beyond, and for North America, and certainly for Israelis.
Yeah, I mean, it's all combined together. I mean, eventually, if you develop the trade and the economy in Dubai, it will bring also tourism. You know, as more people coming in, there's more activities over there. And definitely, as we said, they're looking to brand Dubai as a World Trade Center, World Tourism Center, in all the aspects. And I think the message was very clear during this opening. And as I say, it's really amazing to see an Arab country, a Muslim country, to change the completely vision and understanding among the other Arab countries. And it's very encouraging. I must say it's very promising. And I think that the future for the entire region, if they will follow the footsteps of the Emirates, is definitely going to be something very amazing and with significant impact on the entire region.
Right. Incredibly on brand for Dubai, right? Cosmopolitan, cutting edge, and of course, huge in scale, right? What could be more on brand for Dubai than this? You can understand why they went at this event with such gusto and have embraced it and made it such a huge national priority.
Right, but I will note that in the opening ceremony, they also paid honor to their culture, their own culture, the Islamic culture, the Arabic culture, the culture of that they come from the desert, but in an inviting and opening way for the world, and that is something.
And that's also on brand, right? I mean, the Emirates has never abandoned its roots, right?
Right.
It's tried to show how its roots can be meshed into this incredibly modern city, again, in an event on this scale, designed to really make an impression. Of course, the wild card, how will the pandemic play into all of this? But let's be hopeful that over the course of the next 6 months, at least, that all will improve, at least, and be able to have more and more people join in on this incredible experience.
Absolutely. Let's be optimistic that, in fact, that it did open up just a year later, at least, because the situation could have been completely different if a vaccine hadn't been developed, and hopefully the situation will continue to prove in that regard. Owen Alterman, thank you for joining us, and Chairman Samuel Shai, stay with us. We're going to stay focused on the Middle East because